Well, welcome everybody to Transition and Thrive. This is John Stokes, and today I have Mitchell, who is going to talk about his career curveball. So that's today's topic around career curveball. I've known Mitchell now for, it's going on, what, a couple of years now, Mitchell?
Yeah, right at it.
Absolutely. And he's from the beautiful Sunshine State. And we welcome you today, Mitchell. So I'd like to just kind of set the stage, if you would, on how we met. And let's go back to that moment where essentially you and I got introduced.
Well, that's a good question, John. It all started out, we were in the midst of building a brand new house here in Southwest Florida. All right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and we moved here in preparation for retirement. Absolutely did from the state of Texas. So we left Texas and came here. And there's a big story behind that, but we won't go there. Uh, it, we were in the midst of building the house and everything was going well. Of course, my wife is disabled. She can't work. She has really bad back problems and that sort of thing. She can't sit for long. She can't stand for long. And she was in the midst of going after Social Security disability. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, disaster strikes. I
Hmm.
get this dreaded call from Human Resources. Your position has been eliminated. We're at the end of December of 2023. So
Okay.
it's like, and the house wasn't done yet.
Hmm.
And that was like we had bills piling up and it was a really scary time. So that's what the triggering event, okay? Well, one of the benefits that the employer gave me was, okay, well, let's hook them up with a career coach and help them out with, revamping their resume and job searches and that sort of thing. And along all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came one of these webinars that was in their newsletter. And of course, I had all sorts of time on my hands, and it was all about finances and career transition. I said, well, sign me up. I've got nothing but time. I can sit here and listen in. Maybe I'll learn something. Maybe it's something I already know. It is what it is. And it's that time when I attended that webinar that you and I met.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that outplacement firm that I still work with are very
Mm-hmm.
generous and giving their clients like you the opportunity to attend those workshops. And in that workshop material that we presented, what was it that motivated you, I guess, if that's the appropriate word, to reach out to us and have a conversation?
Well, let's go back to February 2022 and what happened in the markets. All right.
Oh,
Everybody lost money. It is what it is. We lost money. Here comes all the inflation. And it's like, holy cow, what do I do?
mm,
Um, I had my money set up with another fiduciary at the time. I'm not going to say their name,
okay.
but they basically put me into a 60-40 or a 70-30 mix
Hmm.
and let it ride. They
Okay.
weren't watching anything, it's just let it ride. That was their whole premise.
Mm,
And there were leading indications of something that was going to happen in February of 2022.
mm,
Back as far as August, September of 2021, we knew that something was going to occur because, the election and that sort of thing. We knew something was going to occur. We just didn't know when.
mm,
And they made zero evasive maneuvers, that sort of thing. They didn't try to, preserve my principal, minimize losses, that sort of thing. I
mhm.
lost a tremendous amount of money there. And it was just like, oh my gosh, that just set me back at least 2 to 5 years, depending on how long it's going to take to recoup that loss.
Yeah.
Um, so that was looming in the background. And then when you and I met, I said, okay, well, let's take a look at what we have. All right. You do a little analysis. You showed me where a lot of your clients, they did lose some, but it wasn't as massive as the losses that I have. And I said, that's it. You're
Mm.
hired.
Oh, well, I don't remember it being that easy, Mitchell, but if you say so, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I was really unhappy with the prior fiduciary. It just they they have a lot of services that they brought to the table,
Sure.
most of which were about as useless as a screen door on a submarine.
Yeah, I think, quite frankly, I think what does separate us apart, if I could, I should say, is, we are a boutique firm. I mean, we've got clients that typically have gone through the same type of transition that reach out to us because the current financial firm is more transactional, right? They
Yeah,
didn't know you got laid off, or there wasn't enough reach out during that period, right? Where
right.
they should have known that. Because when one gets laid off, essentially, or even plans on retiring, you've got 401k decisions to make. You've got stock options. You've got health care. Um, you've
Yeah,
got next steps in life, right? There's a lot of financial stuff that you have to prepare and to a certain degree know about.
that's
And
right.
so where we come in is right place, right time. When somebody like you attends those webinars and they see that they can do all those things under one roof, and we'll talk about that today, a little bit about some of those benefits that you're being rendered through our company and your retirement. So consolidation is essentially one aspect of it, is consolidating numerous 401ks and IRAs and different things like that. So it's all about getting organized, Mitchell. So when you look back and look at that earlier time that we were having a conversation, what do you really think that stood out that took you to that next level?
Well, when I was working with the previous fiduciary, we had already taken all these different 401ks that I had across multiple employers. And I even had a pension fund, believe it or not. It was trivial, the amount, but we went ahead and rolled that all over. So we had it all in one big bucket, so to speak, even though it was diversified and that sort of thing. It was all in one bucket. With the exception, I had some leftover funds with my existing employer. Well, being over 59 and a half and needing some money, I said, just flush it and send me a check.
Okay.
that that kind of kept us afloat until I had to come knocking on John's door and say, John, it's time I'm going to have to take some money out of the IRA because I'm having a devil of a time finding work.
Oh,
That
okay. So let's talk
being in
about that.
yeah,
So
being
you
in my
just,
in my early 60s, we all know that age discrimination is completely illegal, and the government frowns upon it. They sanctions whatever it does that they will do to an employer if they find out that they're doing age discrimination. Well, there's another form of this, and I call it ageism,
hmm,
where you can hide certain aspects of your age on a resume, on paper. Get rid of the old jobs and just put years instead of precise dates and that sort of thing. But you can't hide wrinkles and a receding hairline on a virtual or an on-site interview. There's no
yeah.
way to do it.
Hmm.
And what I found is that there are many managers, younger managers, okay, up and coming new managers, so to speak, that are intimidated by those of us with many years of experience and gray hair and that sort of thing. They're intimidated by us, so they'll pass us by. And
Hmm.
it's not necessarily age discrimination, but it's a mental fallacy. And another fallacy that they have is, okay, this older worker with all this experience, they're going to command higher wages. And we can
Oh,
get and we can get the same level of service out of someone younger that won't cost us as much, so there's cost savings there, but
okay.
it's a mental fallacy. It took me, gosh, what was it, 9 months to find work.
Okay.
And then when I did find work, it paid me 50% of what I used to be paid.
Okay. So
Sure.
let's step
So,
back a little bit there. Um, there's quite a few things I want to touch on
yeah,
there. Ageism. So you had interviewed during this process. This is in 2022, 23 period.
it was in no, it was in early 2024.
Oh, 24, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I mean, during that period, we had yeah, an inflationary period for intensive purposes. So, I guess putting that aside, were you interviewing Mitchell and in that 9 months? there's rejection after rejection after rejection, or let's just talk a little bit about that transition window.
Okay. All right. So, the first trick is getting past all the robots. You
Hmm.
know, you you're no longer filling out an application and handing it to a hiring manager and that sort of thing. It's all done online,
Yeah.
and there are systems in place that will parse through your resume and see if you meet and that sort of thing. But they also do some other things, and the trick was getting the resume in such a form that it would pass through and make it to the hiring manager's desk. All
Mm.
right, that was the first hurdle. And the recruiting agency I worked with helped me out with that tremendously. It was really nice what they did.
Mm.
We completely revamped the resume to do that, and cover letters and you name it.
Okay.
I, on average, I was applying to 7 to 10 possibilities or opportunities per day.
Wow, per day.
Per
Okay.
day. Again, I was desperate for work because, gosh, I've been working since I was 12 years old on the family farm. Okay.
Wow.
Let's
All
put
right.
that into context. I don't know life outside of work.
Hmm. Okay. Wow.
So, if there's something, I guess the work ethic that dad laid in, early on in my life, it just continues on. So I had the need to work because I had to provide for myself. Also my wife, who's disabled, I had to provide her with health insurance and dental insurance, all of those really expensive things. And of course,
Okay.
when I got laid off, they did offer Cobra, but holy cow, the cost of Cobra is just absurd.
Cost of a mortgage these days.
It was more than the mortgage on a brand new house.
Wow. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's astonishing.
it is just ridiculous what it cost.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So 9 months later, you landed that job that paid 50% less than your current employer.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, here's the neat part. I'm a sales engineer, software sales engineer by trade.
Okay.
Cut my teeth on computer programming, got tired of it, and finally found after 30 years of working what I really enjoy doing, and it's selling software and getting people excited and that sort of thing. And all it has to do is work once, and that's it.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I enjoy that
Mm.
tremendously. A lot of satisfaction comes from that, and that's exactly what this new opportunity was doing. Although it was new software and I had to spin up and learn that, that's no big deal. But sooner or later, it was like every sales rep wanted me on their call. So,
Yeah.
I kind of built that. Uh, but again, they offered health insurance. So
Mm.
I covered myself and my wife. It was still expensive to the tune of
Mhm.
about $1,000 a month,
Right.
but it was good health insurance and it tied us over until finally, finally, the wife won her Social Security disability
Mm.
case. They
Okay.
backdated her far enough that she immediately became eligible for Medicare.
Okay.
And then that opened the door to release all this stress of me having to work and having to provide, to just now I think I can afford to retire
Mm.
and retire comfortably, still maintain our standard of living, and go on about my merry way. So that's exactly what I did at the end of 2025. It's like I pulled the ripcord and I said, that's it, I'm done.
Wow, Mitchell, I mean, just in that short period of time, what our listeners are hearing right now is very impactful because you worked not only for yourself, and you mentioned you're doing that your entire life, but you're working for a spouse that was disabled, unable to work. So you needed that health insurance, right?
Yep.
Obviously, with Cobra, in this day and age, you don't have to have health insurance. There's no penalties there, but you needed it certainly for her health. You haven't once talked about, needing it for yourself. It was about protecting her and your family. I think that's just absolutely fantastic. Now, if I may, you are now beyond you're retired. So what, yep, both thumbs up.
Both thumbs
Um,
up. Yes,
you're now
sir.
retired. So what took you to make that final transition besides the money? You just mentioned that now your spouse has got the Social Security. Okay, what? How did that unfold?
Well, one of the things that occurred in, the wife having her disability and that sort of thing, it's just occasionally she needs my help. And
Okay,
over the past 6 to 12 months, I've noticed that she needs my help more frequently.
okay.
Yeah, there was one time, and I'll spill the beans here. She was in the bathroom putting on makeup. Something happened and it knocked her legs out from under her. She fell to the floor
Oh dear.
and could not get up. And I had to go and break off and go help her. It took me 45 minutes to finally get her up on her feet and
Oh
into the
dear.
bed where she sat for the next 5 days.
Oh dear. Oh,
So it was that thought that I will have to be her main caregiver. And in order to give her that sort of care when she needs it, if she needs it, I can't be on calls and I can't be working and that sort of thing. I needed to be there for her all the time. So that was one of the main driving thought processes that took me to you need to retire.
okay. Okay. And so, for intents and purposes, you didn't have to retire per se. You decide to make that decision based on your spouse's disability and just being there for her essentially on a daily basis.
Right. That and there was another twist to this, John.
Mm.
Uh, her condition is going to get progressively worse as she ages.
Ah,
There's no reversal of this. She's not eligible for any kind of surgery that would help her,
oh
and
dear.
it's just going to get worse. So another thought process comes in and goes, we have this bucket list of things and places we want to see and we things we want to do. We have the money out here in the IRA, thanks to my Uncle Lloyd. He gave me some advice as a young lad, and he says, "Boy, you need to put away all the money you possibly can while you're making money because you're going to need it someday."
Right.
And absolutely no truer words. The man retired in his early 60s, a multimillionaire. He followed his own practices. So he practiced what he preached.
Yeah.
And, here I am with more than six figures twice over, setting in net worth. It's
That's
like,
right.
yeah, you can retire on this. It's just let's go do. Let's actually, as a matter of fact, we're going to Palm Springs in February. We're taking a cruise in May, and we're just planning and going and doing. And we even dream. We go to bed at night and say, okay, what are we going to do tonight, brain? If we start thinking about what are we going to do next? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And we're going to accomplish that before she ends up wheelchair bound.
Oh, no, that's wonderful, Mitchell. I mean, so let's go back to those earlier periods. You mentioned that you started interfacing with John Stokes Financial. Let's talk about that experience, if you would.
Okay.
You're on board with us. We're doing extensive financial planning. At that point, it was you working, and then we went through that transition period when now you're in retirement. How has that experience been at John Stokes Financial? Why should people interface with John Stokes Financial based on your experience?
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about the previous fiduciary and their main
Just don't
mode of
use names, and
operation.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And then working with John Stokes Financial. Okay.
sure.
So the previous, I had a specific person that I could call. Of course, I had to call a main number and then be transferred and yada, yada, yada. On the other hand, what fiduciary is going to give you his personal cell phone number and chit chat with you on a day to day, every so often basis? John and I have that level of a relationship, and I
That's perfect.
value that to no end
Hmm.
because I know at any point in time, if I have some kind of financial difficulty, I could call him, I could call Tom, anybody on the staff, and get immediate attention. And I thoroughly love that.
Great. Okay. And so personal touch for you, then you felt.
Yeah, there's a personal touch to this, and it goes back to my my ethic on customer service. If
Hmm.
if somebody comes to me, even at work, they came to me and says, "I need some help."
Mm.
Okay, well, if I have the knowledge and the ability to help, I take ownership of it
Mm.
and I see it to completion. Other people will try to pass the buck. Here, what can I? They'll work harder to get it off their plate than to just do the work.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. So for you, it's customer service. What about any of the planning stuff? For example, you build a pool there,
Yeah.
and it is a beautiful pool. Um, were the conversations around that goal setting and where you were pulling money from? Because if I'm not mistaken, that pool was built as a nice pool, but you made reference to no sooner did you take money out of your investments and utilize that it was replaced within a certain time frame.
Yeah, okay. Let's look at that timeline because we started on this in like March of 2025. Okay. And it took 8 weeks to get the permits and that sort of thing. It just
Hmm.
excruciatingly long time. But then once the permits were in place, the build took place start to finish in 43 days.
Hmm. Wow.
43 days
Yeah, I
from
was.
break ground and all. It was phenomenal what these guys did. And I mean, it just they have their process down pat. So I was knocking on the door, John. Okay, we've got a series of drafts we're going to do. Where am I going to dig up this money? He goes, let's just pull it from the IRA. Okay, pull it. So we treated it kind of like a Roth conversion. I had some cash set back to pay
Hmm.
the taxes and that sort of thing of what we pulled out.
Hmm.
So we treat it like a Roth conversion. I paid the pool off and all this other, and like you say, it's a beautiful pool. I love it. It's just it turned this house into a resort.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
and but at the end of it, we finished up around the 1st of August. Okay, so we're talking from March to August. We finished up by August. By September, I looked at the balances and it was like, we didn't even touch the principal. And we're talking a pool that was $127,000 to build.
Wow, that's a nice pool. Yes.
Yeah, so wow. It's like, how could
Yeah.
I be any happier?
Certainly, we'll take credit. We'll take the credit, but certainly where market conditions lie right now. And
Yep.
so, in that, all right. So you're in retirement now, and you mentioned you're going out to Palm Springs and doing bits and pieces. How does it feel? Tell our audience, after working essentially 50 plus years of your life, how
Mhm.
does it feel being in retirement, and what adjustments did you need to make, if any?
Okay, so let's go back to when I lost the job and I was looking for work. That was one of the most stressful times in my life. I was literally living on adrenaline. It was like, where am I going to go? How am I going to do? It's just, I was absolutely lost
Wow.
until I found this job and it kind of tied me over. And, things progress, everything changes, nothing stays static.
Yeah.
And when that event occurred and the wife got her Social Security disability, I felt the weight of the world come off my shoulders.
Yeah.
So that stress went away. The my compel to provide for her, it still exists, but it wasn't as pressing as before, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
yeah.
So, this time when I retired, when I pulled the ripcord, there was no stress involved because I knew we had the finances to cover ourselves. I knew we had the house. I knew we weren't going to end up homeless and out on the street. And I knew that.
Right.
Uh, we had things kind of ironed out because of the 9 months that I went without work. I
Mm,
knew what our expenses were, and we started tightening our belt. And what can we do to make the money last longer? And not necessarily have to do it, but it's just I've lived frugally for so long. It's just the
mm,
way I am.
yeah.
Um, but now, I mean, transition into, I have a laundry list of things that I need to do around this place. Yeah, you name it. But once I finish all that, I really don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah, I may go to volunteer someplace where I
Oh,
could, you know, do some. let's say computer training or something like that for the elderly that want to learn, or somebody wants to learn to type or whatever it is. I could volunteer my time on that easy enough. But my days of working for W-2 or 1099, they're gone. They're
Yeah,
gone. They're
that's
gone.
wonderful. All right,
I mean,
so if you're
uh,
sitting down or having a conversation with somebody that is in transition, um, what would you say to them? What would be the first thing from your heart that you would say to them?
well, first is I've been there. And I know what's going on. I know what's going on in your mind. I know the fears that you have, and I'd help them try to settle that,
Mm,
depending on their financial situation again. Because I
yeah,
mean, there's so many people that haven't put anything away. They're in their 40s. They
yeah,
get laid off, and now what do I do? How do I make my house payment? How do I make my car payment? How do I afford to live?
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
you can't live like that. I've never been one to drive the car looking right over the hood ornament. I always look way down the road because you don't know what tomorrow brings. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well,
So
yeah, having said that, and if you're looking back, was this curveball a blessing in disguise or something else?
yeah, at the time, I thought the world was coming to an end. I really did. I scared to death, running on adrenaline, couldn't sleep. Absolutely, I had to go to the doctor and get some medications that would help settle me down. So
Wow.
I mean, I was just heart racing all the time. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything but think fear.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Uh, yeah. Uh, pardon me. Um, Eventually, though, once I found that job, then, things kind of settled down. And then here came, the change of event with the wife getting her Social Security. And here goes all the stress and stuff. And it was like, became, pardon me.
yeah, sure.
I'm
So,
getting over a little something here. Well, it became a blessing in disguise. Number one, the house wasn't done yet. So
mm,
I had time that I could get in here and supervise and watch the subcontractors and help have them fix their mistakes when they make them.
yeah,
Uh, pardon
bless
me,
you.
John.
No, no, it's right, Mitchell. So, yeah, I know we just have a few minutes to go here. So, I kind of like to summarize this as, we're hearing Mitchell's story here. Certainly, he talked a lot about things like ageism. He talked about timing. He talked about the disability of a loved one. And ironically, that is one of the top reasons that I often see, Mitchell, on why people retire earlier.
Yeah,
So, so, so not that you were forced into it. I mean, you had enough in savings. You had prepared for this. Although, to some degree, it was contingent on the outcome of the Social Security for your spouse
yeah,
and the timing of that. But it's not uncommon. It is not uncommon that folks go into early retirement,
yeah,
right? Because they're either forced to for themselves or for a loved one.
yeah,
And your story today spoke very much in tune with that. And a lot of compassion came from you. And I really appreciate that, Mitchell.
yeah.
So,
One of the other things, John, I'm fortunate in the fact that I don't have any pre-existing conditions.
mm,
So I was able to go into the private marketplace to find health insurance,
mm,
whereas the wife having pre-existing conditions, she could not.
good
So
point.
that is the reason I had to hang on to Cobra
Good
throughout
point.
2024. And then with the new employer, I had to do that.
Yeah.
Now on Medicare, here we go.
Yeah.
Four
Oh,
hundred
that's a
dollars
good
a
point.
month, and I've got my own health insurance, and I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Those decisions along healthcare. I mean, when you get laid off for intensive purposes, you do have Cobra available majority of the time. It's all based on the size of the company, essentially. Um, but it's not all or one. I mean, you don't have to have everybody on Cobra. You can essentially have one or two people on Cobra. You could have your kids or a spouse or yourself on the
Yeah.
marketplace. That in itself requires a lot of knowledge, effort,
Yeah.
and certainly at John Stokes Financial, we've got experts in house that have those conversations.